ॐ गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरा गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ॐ ध्यानमूलं गुरो मूर्ति पूजामूलं गुरो पदम् मन्त्रमूलं गुरोवाक् मोक्षमूलं गुरो कृपा. Shalom friends, today we will continue the reading of Yog Vashisht, chapter 5, book 3, Utpatti Khand. In this, there is going to be discussion on the main reason for this creation, or why, what is the cause of it, that this is there. Ramji said, O chief of the sages, what is the cause that leads to our misconception of the mind? How it is produced and what is the source of its illusion? Tell me, sage, in brief about the first production of the mind. And then, O best of the eloquent, you may say what else there is to be said on the subject. Vashishtji replied, incident to the universal dissolution, when all things are reduced to nothing, this infinity of visible objects remain in a state of calm and quiet before their creation. There is only great God in existence, who is uncreated and without decay, who is the creator of all at all times, who is all in all and supreme soul of all, and who resembles the sun that never sets. He whom language fails to describe and who is known only to the liberated, who is termed the soul only by fiction and not by his real nature. He is the cosmic man, Purusha, of the Sankhya philosophers, and Brahma of Vedanta followers, and intelligence of Gnostics, wholly pure and apart from all. He is known as vacuum by vacuists, and one who gives the sun its light. He is truth itself, the power of speech and thought and vision, and all action and passion forever. He who through ever existent everywhere appears as non-existent to the world, and though situated in all bodies, seems to be far from them. He is the enlightener of our understanding, like the light of the sun to the world. It is he from whom the gods, Vishnu and others are produced, like solar rays from the sun, and from whom infinite worlds have come into existence like bubbles in the sea. It is he to whom these multitudes of visible creations returns, like the waters of the earth to the sea, and who enlightens all souls and bodies like a lamp. He is present alike in heaven, in earth, and in the nether worlds, who abides equally in all bodies, whether of the mineral, vegetable, or animal. He resides alike in each particle of dust, as in the high and huge mountain ranges, and he rides as swiftly on the wings of the winds as he sleeps in the depths of the earth. He appoints the 8 internal and external organs of sense and action to their several functions, and he has made dull and dumb creatures as inert and as stones, and mute as if they sitting in a meditation. He has filled the skies with emptiness and the rocks with solidity. He has dissolved waters to fluidity and has concentrated all light and heat in the sun. He has spread these wonderful scenes of the world like clouds sprinkle charming showers of rain, both as endless and constant as they are charming and sweet to sight. It is He who causes the appearance and disappearance of the worlds in the sphere of His infinity, like waves in the ocean, and in whom these phenomena rise and set like the running sands of the deserts. His spirit is the indestructible soul that has resides as the germ of decay and destruction inside animals. It is so minute to lie hidden within the body and so huge as to fill the whole existence. His nature spreads herself like a magic and produces the fair fruit in the form of cosmic act, that is Brahman, while the outward organs of bodies resembling the branches of this plant keep dancing about the stem, shaken by the breeze of life which is ever fleeting. It is He who shines as the gem of intelligence and the heart of human body, and it is He from whom the luminous orbs constituting the universe continually derive their luster. It is that colossus of intelligence which, like a cloud, sheds ambrosial draughts of delight to soothe our souls and showers forth innumerable beings everywhere like raindrops. It bursts into constant flashes, showing the prospects of repeated creation, which are as momentary as flashes of lightning. It is His wonderful light that displays the world to our wondering sight, and it is from His being that both real and unreal derive their reality and unreality. The unconscious and ungodly soul turns to the attractions of others against its own purpose, while the tranquil soul rests in itself. It is He who transcends all existences and by whom all existent beings are bound in their proper times and places to their destined actions as they are bound to their free atoms, free actions, motions, and efforts of all kinds. It is He from His personality of pure consciousness became the form of emptiness, then by means of His empty mind and empty thoughts filled it with substances wherein His soul was to reside and whereon His spirit had to reside. Having thus made the infinite host of the worlds in the immense sphere of the universe, He is yet neither the agent of any action nor the author of any act in it, but remains ever the same as the soul, one alone, in His unchangeable and unimpaired state of self-consciousness, and without any fluctuation, evolution, or adhesion of Himself, as He is quite unconcerned with the world. I think this chapter is called the main reason for this creation, but I think mainly it describes the thing which is from which everything is originated. It is more like description of that basic reason of this creation. Vasishji is continuing, and it is the 6th chapter, honest effort required to attain self-knowledge. It is by the knowledge of this transcendent Supreme Spirit and God of gods that one may become an adept, and not by the rigor of rigorous austerities and practices. Here nothing else is needed than the culture and practice of divine knowledge, and thereby the truth being known. One views the efforts of world like a satisfied traveler looks at a mirage in a clear light. God is not far from or too near us. He is not obtainable by what He is not. He is only the calm peacefulness of one's own nature that is of value for a person to serve God. The best means to attain divine knowledge are fondness for the society of the righteous and devotion to the study of good books. Ritual services and practices serve only to strengthen the trap of our inborn delusions, which only true knowledge can sever. As soon as one knows one's own inner light to be God, one gets rid of his miseries and becomes liberated in his living state. Ram said, having known the self in himself, one is no more exposed to the evils of life or even of death itself. I will repeat again. Ram said, having known the self in himself, one is no more exposed to the evils of life or even of death itself. But say, how is this great God of gods to be attained from such great distance? And what rigorous austerities and amount of pains are necessary for it? Vashishji replied, he is to be known through your courageous efforts and by the aid of clear understanding and right reasoning, and never by the practice of austerities or ablutions, or by acts attended with both bodily pain of any kind. For know, O Ram, that all your austerities and charities, your painstaking and mortifications are of no efficacy unless you wholly renounce your passions and enmity, your anger, pride and selfishness, and your envy and jealousy. For whoever with a heart full of wild passions is liberal with money he has earned by defrauding others, the merit of such liberality accrues to the rightful owner of the property and not to its possessed donor. Whoever observes any woe or right with a mind moved by passions, he passes for a hypocrite and reaps no benefit of his acts. Therefore, for putting down the diseases and disturbances of the world, try your manly exertions in securing the best remedies of good precepts and good company. No other course of action, except to exert one's courage, is conducive to allaying all the miseries and troubles of this life. Now learn what this courage is so that you may attain wisdom and annihilate the maladies of passions, affections, and animosity in your nature. True courage consists in remaining in an honest calling that conforms with the law and good customs of your country, and in a contented mind that shrinks from savoring the enjoyments of life. It consists in the exertion of one's energies to the utmost of his power without bearing any murmur or grief in his soul, and in one's devotion to the society of the good and perusal of good works and scriptures. He is truly brave who is quite content with what he gets and spurns at what is unlawful for him to take, who is attached to good company and eager to study faultless works. They who are of great mind and who have known their own natures and those of all others by their right reasoning are honored by the gods Brahma, Vishnu, Indra, and Shiva. One should diligently turn towards he who is called righteous by a majority of good people as the best and most upright of men. The best scriptures are considered to be those which deal primarily with spiritual knowledge. One who constantly meditates on them is surely liberated. It is by means of right discrimination derived from keeping good company and studying holy works that our understanding is cleared of its ignorance, just like dirty water is purified by kata seeds, and as the minds of men are purified by the philosophy of yoga. With this chapter 6 also ends. Let us take another chapter 7, this that God is pure consciousness, the phenomenal world is non-existent. Ram said, "Tell me, O Holy One, about this God that you have spoken of, whose knowledge you said leads to our liberation. Where is he situated, and how can I know him?" Shishji replied, "This God of whom I spoke of is not at any distance from us. He is situated within these our bodies, and he is known to us as form of pure consciousness. He is all in all, but all this world is not the omnipresent himself. He is one alone, but it's not all that is visible. It is this consciousness that is in Shiva, who wears the crescent moon on his head. It is the same in Vishnu, who rides on his Garuda eagle, and in Brahma, who is born of the lotus. The sun also is a particle of this intelligence." Ram replied, "So it is, and even children say that if the whole world is mere consciousness, then why call it by another name? What is the use of teaching anyone about it?" Vashishji replied, "If you believe pure consciousness is the same as the intelligent world, then you know nothing about how to get rid of this world. The world is truly intelligent, O Ram, but the animal soul is called a brutish Pashu, observer of things, because it looks only after sensual gratifications, which gives rise to only fears of disease, decay and death. The animal soul, that is Jiva, though an incorporeal substance, is an ignorant thing and subject to pain and sorrow. The mind, that is Manas, also, though capable of intelligence, has become the root of all evils. Intellectual liberation from thoughts of the world is one state, unintelligent gazing at it is another. He who knows the better of these two states of the soul has no cause of sorrow. He who has seen all the surpassing Supreme Being has all of his heart strings cut asunder and all the questions of his mind driven away. The effects of his acts are washed away. The longing after phenomena doesn't cease unless the perception of phenomena is affected from the mind. Effaced from the mind. How then is this perception to be effaced? How is it possible to have a longing after the unintelligible intelligence without suppressing our longing for phenomena? It is only possible by avoiding the external perceptions of the mind. Ram said, "Sage, tell me about that empty animal soul and how the knowledge of such soul doesn't enable one to get rid of reincarnation. Tell me also who is that man by company with the good and study of good works has crossed the ocean of the world and beholds the supreme soul in himself." Ashishji replied, "Whatever animal souls, having been cast into the wilderness of this life, long after this intelligent soul, they are truly wise and know him. Whoever believes the animal soul to be the life of the world and thinks consciousness require pain, he can never know him anywhere. If Supreme Soul is known to us, O Ram, the succession of our sorrows is ended, like the fatal cholera after extraction of its poison." Ram said, "Tell me, O Holy One, about the true form of Supreme Soul, by light of which the mind may escape from all its errors." Vashishji replied, "The Supreme Soul is seen within ourselves, within our bodies, in the same way as we are conscious that our minds are still within us after its flight to distant countries. You may think of US or UK, but your mind is here itself, although it is thinking of that country. Our notion of the Supreme Spirit is often lost in the depths of our minds, in the same way as the existence of the outer world becomes extinct in our consciousness during meditation. We lose our sense of seeing, and the seen in the knowledge of Him, who is a non-empty vacuum or a substantive emptiness. He whose substance appears as vacuum and in whom exists the empty fullness of the universe, and who appears as emptiness itself, in spite of the multitude of his creation existing in him, is truly the form of the Supreme Soul. The form of the Supreme Soul is He who, though full of intelligence, appears to stand before us like an unconscious huge rock, and whom, though quite subtle in his nature, seems to be some gross body to our conception. That which encompasses the inside and outside of everything and assumes the name and nature of everything to itself is truly the form of the Supreme. As light is connected with sunshine and emptiness with the sky, and as omnipresence is present with everything and everywhere, such is the form of the Supreme Spirit. Ram asked, but how are we to understand that He who bears the name and nature of Absolute and infinite reality should yet be compressed within anything visible in the world? Such is quite impossible to believe. Vashishji replied, the false conception of the creation of the world resembles the false impression of colors in this clear sky. It is wrong, O Ram, to take something as real which doesn't exist in nature. It is the knowledge of Brahma that constitutes his form, or else there is no act of his whereby he may be known to us. He is entirely devoid of any visible form, and therefore there is no better way for anyone other than to know him as truth. After all trace of phenomena is gone, there remains a preeminent object of conception, which is inborn and manifest of itself. This concept of the Supreme Eminent, having no visible appearance, often has no reflection, and at other times it is reflected in the mirror of the mind. Nobody has ever conceived this transcendent truth in himself who hasn't at the same time been convinced of the impossibility of the existence of the visible world. Ram replied, tell me, O sage, how the existence of so many extensive worlds composing the visible universe can be thought of as unreal or comprised in the minutiae of the divine mind, like Mount Meru in a sesame seed. Vashishji replied, if you stay in the company of holy men a few days, and if you study sacred scriptures with a steady mind with me, then I will purge this false view of phenomena from your understanding like a delusive mirage from one sight. This absence of the view will extinguish your sense of being the viewer and restore you to your intelligence alone. When the viewer is united with the view and the view with the viewer, then duality becomes unity. Duality blends into an inseparable unity. Without union of the two, there is no success of either. When viewer and the view have disappeared, only one unity remains. I will cleanse the impurity of all your sense of I and you, the world and all other things from the mirror of your mind, by bringing you to your consciousness of self and the total negation of everything else. From nothing never comes a something, and from something never proceeds a nothing. So there is no difficulty whatever in removing what doesn't exist in nature. It is the beginning of this world, which appears so very vast and extensive, was not in being. It resided in the pure spirit of Brahma. It has evolved from the mind of Brahma. The thing called the world was never produced. It is not in being, and it doesn't actually appear. It is like gold in the form of a bracelet. It is not difficult to alter and reduce it to its gross metallic state. I will explain it fully by other examples whereby this truth may appear of itself and impress itself irresistibly in your mind. How can something be said to exist that was never brought into existence? How can there be water in the mirage or the ring of an eclipse in the moon? As a barren woman has no sun and a mirage has no water, and as the sky has no plant growing in it, so there is no such thing as what we falsely call the world. Oh my goodness. Whatever you see, O Ram, is the indestructible Brahma himself. I have shown you this many times with good reasoning and not just with mere words. It is unreasonable, O intelligent Ram, to disregard something a learned man tells you with good reasoning. The dull-headed fellow who neglects to listen to the words of reason and wisdom is deemed as a fool and is subject to all sorts of difficulties. So with this, chapter 7 also ends, and we will take one more chapter, that is Nature of Good Scriptures, Yog Vashisht as the treasury of all. This is the chapter 8. Ram asked, how can it be reasonably shown and established that there is nothing to be known and seen in this world, although we have obvious notions of it, supported by sense and right reasoning? Vashishtji answered, this endemic of fallacious knowledge has been prevalent for a long time. It is only by true knowledge that this wrong application of the world can be removed from the mind. I will tell you a story, Ram, for your success in this knowledge. If you pay attention to it, you will become both intelligent and liberated. But if the impatience of a brutish creature makes you get up and leave after hearing only half of this story, then you shall reap no benefit from it. Whoever seeks some object and strives after it, he of course succeeds in getting it. But if he becomes tired of it, he fails. Ram, if you keep to the company of the good and to the study of good scriptures, then surely you will arrive at your state of perfection in course of time, according to the degree of your diligence. It may be days, months, or maybe years. Ram, you who are best acquainted with the scriptures, tell me, which is the best scripture for the attainment of spiritual knowledge, such that its familiarity may release us from the sorrows of this life? Vashishtji replied, know, O high-minded Ram, that this work is the best of all others on spiritual knowledge. It is the auspicious Yog Vashisht great Ramayana, the scripture of scriptures. This Ramayana is the best of histories, and it serves to enlighten understanding. It is known to contain the essence of all histories, but by hearing these doctrines, one easily finds his liberation coming to itself to him. This is why it is regarded as the most holy writing. All the existing scenes of the world will vanish upon their mature consideration, just like thoughts in a dream are dispersed after waking and realizing one had been dreaming. Whatever there is in this work can also be found in others, but what is not found here cannot be found elsewhere. Therefore, the learned call this the treasury of philosophy. Whoever attends to these lectures every day shall have his excellent understanding undoubtedly stored day by day with transcendent knowledge of divinity. He who finds this scripture to be disagreeable to his polluted taste may prefer to browse some other scriptures that is more wordy and eloquent. One feels himself liberated in this life by listening to these lectures, just as one finds himself healed of a disease by the portion of some effective medicine. The attentive hearer of these lessons perceives their efficacy in himself in the same way as one feels the effects of curses or blessings that always have their full effects in time. All worldly miseries are at an end with he who considers well these spiritual lectures within himself. A similar effect is hard to be produced through charity or austerities or through performing rituals ordained in the ancient Vedic text, or through the many hundreds of practices that is scriptures describe. And here we close today's session of reading after this chapter 8. Shivoham friends, we will meet tomorrow again.